there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
And this is exactly what these Bitcoin Cash people are building.
Shout out to the Dragon Riders and the House of the Dragon.
Because it's a completely different situation than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's how frogs get boiled. And they added a bunch of new opcodes and they're doing a bunch of things over there.
It will be the most hated rally ever because a lot of people from some propaganda hate Bitcoin Cash.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast. Following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 174, Layla ticket sale and the Epstein Files featuring Jonathan Silverblood. Today is Sunday, the 15th of February, 2026. BCH is, I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing. BCH is back in the top 10, hanging on to that number 10 spot. Cardano is slowly falling off a cliff. The desperate pumps to try and keep it relevant are not working. Charles Hoskinson appearing on Twitter in a McDonald's employee uniform, which is a troll on his part, but he will be there soon enough for real. Today is BCH at $560.49 per 100 megasats, down a little bit. One BTC sat buys only 125.1 BCH sats, up on the ratio there. One ETH, this number is wrong. I didn't double check it, didn't have time. But we're doing good against ETH too. Selene, 30-day users, 723. We're on the rise, and the Tokenaut TVL was 9,103 BCH, but the site was not loading. So who knows what it is now. In any case, we're here with Jonathan Silverblood, back for his, maybe fourth or fifth time on the show? Maybe more. Been on a bunch of times.
More. I'm going to guess on more.
Plus the Blaze streams. You were a big contributor to those. So a long time podcast guest. Today, the BLISS founder and General Protocols co-founder. Jonathan, how are you doing? Give us an update. Where are you at in the world?
So I'm doing great. And BCH is doing better than ever. My current focus at GP is to make sure that the XO project keeps moving forward and ends up in a really, really nice shape when we release it, which is going to happen this year at some point. If you come to BLISS, by the way, we'll show you how it works in person. But yeah, it's overall going really, really good.
Okay, brilliant. And you said that XO was going to be released in Q1 of 2025, I believe. So today is Sunday, the 15th of February, which means it's a bank run day. So everybody go and do your bank run. I haven't put out the posts for that, but I will do after the show. I have been very, very busy recently, as I'm sure you can tell. But in any case, it also means we're halfway through Q1. Are we still looking on track to get a beta version out before the end of Q1?
Yes, we are.
Any further details? Can I push you on that?
Right, so we're still in the packaging and cleaning up process after getting some of the exploratory code working. We have started actually using it in separate projects, and so there are now more people than the engineers fiddling with it, which is good. And the number of templates is growing. So we have a good situation where we're starting to look at a more varied set of use cases from a more practical standpoint than just me trying to figure out the theory of everything. We had our first internal kind of quick whip up demo app using the engine to send and receive money back and forth. And it created its own user interfaces based on what's in the template, which means it's kind of working. It's not in a perfect final state, of course. So when we do release, there's still going to be edge cases. There's still going to be things left to do, more things to build. But we have gone over the hurdle, the big hurdle of solving for is it possible, and now it's implementation time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that out in the wild.
So it's actually going to launch, not because I mean the first template straight off the top of my head is always going to be P2PKH, right? Just pay send to address, which everybody is always
Yeah.
going to need, right? But it sounds like it's going to launch with more than that. Even the first
Yes.
release is going to have multi-sig or tokens or something. What else is going to be in there then?
So we're only going to have one that is officially supported in the first release, which is pay to public cash, as you said. But we also have, of course, the NHedge template, and I have a auction contract template, and I have an escrow template, and I have a Guru template. Though the Guru template probably needs a little bit more work to clear up before we're going to make anything with it. But we wanted to showcase that you can actually do a wide variety of things with these templates and actually build everything up from the ground and upwards. And so my expectation is that we will make one release now in Q1 somewhere, and then probably before we get to BLISS, most of these other templates will already be working. That's my guess. Like my hope. This is where I kind of want to be, and I think it's doable. But I can't say for sure. We'll have to see when we actually meet up at BLISS, and I'll show you everything I have.
Feels like everything is moving so fast that it's hard to get an update, because it's kind of one of those situations. By the time you already get an update, it's already going out of date, right? Things are already accelerating forward. So that's really great to hear. And that's going to come with a full wallet and stuff. We're going to have the full XO wallet as well as the templates, or just the templates?
We're working on 3 kinds of wallets right now. One CLI wallet for integration in other software. Like if you just need a wallet as part of your project and you want to be able to send commands to it and have it do things, we're working on a CLI version of that. We have a text user interface wallet, which is like the quick and crude version, like test everything, see if it works. And then we're doing a proper Android iOS wallet, as an application. And that is what's going to come last after we make sure that the engine is working well.
Right. And so is that basically all the GP focus is on that at the moment? That would be my guess, as well as obviously maintaining and running BCH Bull. Or is it just kind of like that's sort of happening, but there's other stuff going on as well too?
We have more things up in the air than that. But the other things I can't talk about at the moment.
Okay. All right. Wow. The pace of innovation is impressive. If you have even more stuff coming, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works out. And what about just BCH in general? I saw you retweeted my post earlier this morning, which was about seeing some kind of, what would you call them, disenfranchised BCHs, or maybe in some cases even sort of big blockers. They weren't so much into BCH, or maybe they were, but kind of early they left, they've been at the fringes, or they've been busy with their lives, and now we're back in the top 10. People are starting to get a little bit interested. I'm seeing that happen. Companies that historically were a bit on the BCH side, starting to suddenly release a couple new features that are upgrading to cash tokens, things like that. I really feel like we're getting the momentum and we're winning. So we're attracting attention from some of those people who are more at the periphery and have been ignoring it. But of course, it's going to take them a little while to feel their feet out and their new position, because BCH now is maybe not what they remember. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of that. Were you thinking the same, or?
Yeah, we are absolutely thinking the same. So the way I see it is that back in 2017 or so, when BCH split, a lot of people had criticism of BCH, and a lot of those people were actually right in their criticism. We were effectively Bitcoin, but with bigger blocks, and demand for bigger blocks at the time weren't the large part of the market. Most people since then in other ecosystems that are outside of BCH haven't been following what BCH has been doing. And so their thinking has been mostly stuck with the idea that BCH is BTC but with bigger blocks, right? But as long as BCH price goes down in relation to theirs, they have no reason to look into what has changed, right? But now we're starting to see a lot of people asking like, hey, why is BCH back in top 10? Hey, why is BCH outperforming BTC? Hey, why is BCH not dead yet? It was supposed to be dead. And it's a bit of an awakening, right, for some of these people. And even some people who were very clearly and very strongly against BCH back in the day, with the uncovering of the Epstein files and the narrative shift that is happening as part of that discussion that followed, some of these people have started questioning like, okay, did I actually operate on valid and correct data when I made my decision back in 2017? Or did I believe something that was actually not true? Did I defend something that didn't really turn out to be the truth?
Yes.
So yeah,
indeed.
There's a lot of big shifts in culture going on at the moment.
I mean, it's interesting you say that because I am seeing it more from the angle of, on one hand, yes, there are people who had never updated their priors from 2017, whether because they didn't support BCH or they did, but it didn't have enough kind of grunt to get going. But I'm sort of also seeing a trend of people who were involved maybe when it was still fighting with BSV, fighting with the XEC, maybe in the immediate aftermath, potentially even up to the point where Smart BCH collapsed, so between all those things you just have so much chaos, and that also overlays a lot of that with the price graph just going like straight down. So between those two things, those people have a lot of trauma, maybe even you could say, like, that it's going to be very hard for them to believe that BCH is like back and is killing it, because they like, there's a part of their mind that wants to, there's a part of their heart that wants to believe that things have all turned around and it's a lot better, but they're going to come back to it sort of with the baggage of that time. And ironically, even though they are supporters or were supporters of BCH, they come back in with a negative attitude, like, oh, this wasn't working, or it can't work, or it died, or it failed, or we tried. Like, why haven't you guys given up yet? Like that kind of thing. I'm seeing a little bit of that energy as well too.
I mean, the first couple of years after the split, BCH was basically identifying itself as rebels, right? That was who we were. And we were all united in that we don't want the other thing, right? We don't want small blocks. And in that unity, it was possible for us to fork off. It was possible for us to execute a chain split and actually create a separate coin without, immediately evaporating and dying out, like so many other attempts have actually done. But since we all were effectively rebels, we hadn't agreed on what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go. We only agreed where we did not want to be. And so the discussions had shifted, like, okay, what do we want to do? Like, where are we aligned otherwise? And it turns out that in a large group of people, that alignment was kind of missing to some degree. And we had our splits again with both BSV and XDC. And I'll argue that those splits were kind of costly, but we were looking at them from a different angle, the angle of let's learn from our mistakes now. And eventually we did get on with the chip process and set up a framework for how to coordinate actual consensus and how to make future upgrades without causing the same kind of chain splits and network effect losses. So yeah, the first few years there's a lot of people who were disgruntled and they walked away, and if they're coming back now and they haven't kept up to date, then maybe they don't trust the chip process, right? Maybe they didn't read up on all the previous chips, because that's a lot of work, right? Reading up on all the chips we have done and all the associated information we have with them. And so I get it. I get if they're conservative and if they're like, don't immediately believe and trust it, that's fine.
Yeah, well, I just think everybody who is listening to the show who has been involved for the last few years just kind of needs to be aware of this, because you're going to see that sentiment and it's going to feel a bit weird, because it's going to be like, you should be on our team. Like, why are you coming back in with all these negative, vibes when we've been delivering this whole time while you haven't been here, So like, as people get curious, they do need to work through that process, but the turnaround to a positive vibe with a strong direction, with everyone united and stuff, is going to catch these people off guard. And in fact, they might not even like it, or like initially, once somebody is set in their ways, once they have a belief that something cannot work, then, or that it didn't work, or we couldn't make it work, seeing it work can be kind of confronting, and at first it's a bit of a hit even to the ego, or to figure out like, what did I miss, right? Or like, how did I not see that this could turn out great? Was I part of the problem? Like, there's a lot of things to work through there. So I just think everybody should be aware of that, and trying to, because you have to be both understanding and like, hey, welcome back, check out what we've been doing in the meantime, yada, yada, yada. But people might look at that and then say, well, this was wrong. This was a bad decision. Like this. And maybe it was like someone in my comment, oh, Abla was the wrong thing. You should have done this or should have done that. And it's like, well, you weren't here at that time. You weren't involved in the discussion. Yeah. And we did make the right decision. It's going to just take you a while to come around to it,
Yes, well, if you are here, the listener that like recognizes yourself in some of this, then don't worry. Like, all you have to do is just jump across from your original position and test everything. Just use it and see what works, and then judge what works or what doesn't work on its own, and ignore all the past and all that, and you'll be fine. You'll make better decisions because you're operating on new information, good information, and that's it. You don't have to worry too much about like all the past for this. It's a technical tool. Use it if you like it.
Indeed. Okay, so let's get straight onto it then. So the big news for today is we have launched the ticket sale for BLISS 2026. It will be in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, for the third year in a row. The dates this time are the 15th to the 17th, so that it sits over a weekend. Of course, the Friday is the 15th, where the Layla upgrade will be going live on mainnet. We will discuss more about that in a minute, but you can be there as it happens live. I mean, it doesn't specifically happen there. It happens everywhere in the world with the nodes and the miners upgrading. But you certainly do feel like you're where it is happening when you're at BLISS, because so many people are in the same room together and everybody's chatting and excited. So if you want to buy a ticket, you can just go on the website, bliss.cash. The last 2 years, we sold them via TapSwap, but this year the NFTs are available directly from the website with a custom smart contract. So we have leveled that up. It's still not perfect, but I would say it is a step forward. Jonathan, can you tell me a little bit about this new ticket vending machine that we have? That's been an innovation you've been operating.
Yeah. So previous years, for context, we have had only one type of ticket that we sold. And then for builders in the ecosystem, we have offered a special builder ticket, which was discounted and offered them a little bit more social experiences, a bit more time after the presentation hours, some dinners, and other good things. Now, that has caused a little bit of issue every year, in the sense that maybe a builder gets a builder ticket and the better half gets a regular ticket, and suddenly they're not supposed to be in the same place, which is kind of bad. And it's also caused the problem that some of the people who are building in the ecosystem, who really are builders, happen to be anonymous, and therefore had no possibility to, identify themselves and do what's needed to get that builder ticket. But this year, we are instead making several tiers of tickets. There are actually more tiers than are available on the website, because we now have also integrated sponsor tickets, and we might do more kinds of tickets types in the future. But for this year, on our website, you will be able to buy regular tickets and premium tickets. And a premium ticket is a ticket that includes everything that BLISS offers. It includes not only the presentations and the panels and the talks and the lunches and the breaks, but it also includes after-hours events, social things, a dinner, and more time with the people who's there. Now, if you are anonymous and you want to be there and meet everyone and be at all the things, then all you have to do is buy a premium ticket and you have the same access as anyone else do. There's also the regular ticket, which is for those who want to go for the conference solely for the content that we are producing. And if you buy a regular ticket, then you will have access to all of our presentations, to all of our panels. You get lunch and coffee and snacks included. And there's, of course, merchandise and things like that that's normal at conference events. But you will not have access to the after hours, and you will not be part of the dinner. That's the big distinctions, I'd say. But if you are a builder in the ecosystem, we still want to cater to your specific type of people, because we think it's valuable to have the builders get connected and meet each other and come to BLISS. And so, like previous year, we are going to offer a discount to people who are builders. But contrary to previous years, we are going to make it a little bit more, I don't know, tit for tat. So if you are contributing anything in particular to BLISS, if you're a camera guy, or if you are one of our panelists or speakers, or if you're some other staff function, then this discount applies to you. If you are a builder and you want this discount to apply to you, then all you need to do is contact us and tell us what project you are building in the ecosystem. And then I will assign you one of the tables in our open floor section. So for 1 hour, one of the 3 days, you will have a table where you man the table. It will have a nice looking place for you to be and a name tag, where other people can go to your table and talk with you about your project. Right? So this is generally a win-win situation for everyone. You as a builder gets not only a discount on your ticket, but you also get an opportunity to get your project in front of more people and get to show it to other people. And it's also a win from the BLISS organization perspective, because when you bring your project there and you man that table, then you create value for the event. And this is why we're giving out that discount. So yeah, there are multiple different types of tickets. And you can buy the premium ticket or the regular ticket on the BLISS website itself. The premium tickets this year is priced at 0.4 BCH, and the regular tickets are priced at 0.4 BCH, and the premium tickets are priced at 1 BCH. There's also sponsor tickets. So if you're a sponsor or want to sponsor, reach out to us and we'll talk about that in private.
Yes, if you want a special sponsor ticket, you have to be on the inside to get involved in that. And one final note also is that if you have a Blaze ticket for our winners from Blaze, you are automatically in the premium tier. So if you have one of those, you don't need to do anything to
argue that you are above premium tier. But you'll see why when you get there.
You do get some also benefits from being there with that. Now, with the hotel, what is the deal this year? You know, that changes slightly every year. It is once again at the Sheraton 4 Points in Ljubljana, which has done a fantastic job the previous couple of years. So we're very happy to be working with them again. Not ever have I had from the previous two events a single complaint from anybody about the venue, about the rooms, about the food. Actually, you tend to get quite a lot of people saying, wow, the food here is really great.
I've had one person complain about the food, saying that it's not spicy enough. So if you're looking for spicy food, then the hotel in Ljubljana offers tasty food and lots of variety and flavors, but they don't offer that heat that you might want otherwise.
bring your own chili flakes. Bring just a small thing of
Yeah.
chili flakes and just dump it on your food. that solves that problem. But anyway, we are there again, and people will clearly wanting to be paying in BCH and so forth. So how are we doing that this year?
Right. So the venue offers the same offer that they have had actually both of the previous year, in the sense that if you book your room through the link that is on the bliss.cash website, you will have a slight discount on the room, but you will also have breakfast included. That's otherwise an extra you have to pay for. Now, the previous 2 years, they have been taking BCH as payment, but due to regulatory changes, the payment processor and all other payment processors in Ljubljana are actually not allowed to do that anymore. And so if paying in BCH is something that is a requirement for you, there are workarounds. Specifically, you can go to third-party sites that lets you book a hotel and pay with BCH rather than book directly with the venue. And this will, though, result in that you don't get the discount and you don't get the breakfast included unless those sites also offer that specific perk.
And you can also reach out to us.
Travala.com is one that I've confirmed with before, supports this.
Okay, brilliant. So people can book through Traveler if they want to book in BCH, or of course you can also contact us. Jonathan and I will be happy to help you out, and we can find workarounds on an individual basis. One of the reasons that we started in Ljubljana, one of the biggest reasons, was that they had those merchant terminals everywhere and everything was working really great. That first year it was amazing, but unfortunately, things are going downhill on the regulatory sense there, and so we might need to relocate in future years. I don't know. It remains to be seen, right?
It's a natural outcome of B2C not scaling in 2017. We were on a very clear trajectory of adoption, and had they actually scaled, I'm 100% confident that all of the politicians' sons and daughters would already be using crypto in some form for payment, and doing these regulatory things would not have flied with them. So yeah, we'll fight our way back up. It's okay.
That's right, exactly. We've just got to accept that that is the way it is, and just there's so many different considerations in terms of where we host the event that we can't always put it on an adoption hotspot. But with the growing community size, we'll eventually be able to break through on that one. Right, so we do have a limit of 100 tickets, same as the previous 2 years, and I know you have been adamant, despite my attempts to convince you otherwise, that we will not be going above 100 tickets. So talk to me a little bit about that. I believe at the moment on the website there's already 73 or less. There's some have already been distributed to people involved in the event, the speakers and so forth, and I know we have several that still have not received their tickets, so the 100 is already ticking down. Tell me about how that's going to work.
All right. So yeah, we minted 100 tickets. So there exist 100 tickets today. 73 of them are inside of this vending machine that we built, and so those are the ones you can purchase from. We know that a few more, 10, 15 or so, are going to go to various functions, staff, speakers, panelists, whatnot, that hasn't gotten their tickets yet, and so some of these will go for that reason. If for some reason we do sell out this in a very, very fast manner, like everything's sold out within a week, then we will, of course, reconsider and do what we can to scale up the event and to make new and more tickets. But I don't expect that based on previous patterns. So the last 2 years, we have sold 50 and a bit over 50 or so in round numbers. No, we've had about 50 and a bit over 50 people coming to the event, and I think 60, 70 or so tickets have actually been sold.
Yes.
I have the numbers, but I don't have them in front of me, so I go from memory. Now, both of the previous events has been when BCH price has been bad and when community sentiment has been not so great. And this year, we are up against BCH. We are pulling a lot of good cultural and narrative shifts, and there's a lot of momentum going on. I actually expect that all of the tickets are going to be sold out this year. And I expect maybe 70 people, maybe 75, something like that, is going to be physically present at the event.
Indeed. So tell me about this vending machine. That was where we started, and now we're kind of looping around to it. So in previous years, we have done it with TapSwap, but this year we haven't. Maybe you can elaborate on that. And we're just trying to raise the bar
Right.
every year. This is a new innovation. It's now coming straight from an on-chain contract that we have custom developed, and I believe are going to open source so that others can use as
Yes.
well, right? Tell me about that.
Right, I'll tell you. No, first, before we say we, BLISS in collaboration with Satoshi Nakamoto has done this. And so Satoshi Nakamoto is the one building it, and we are providing like input and specifications for it and help paying for some of it. The vending machine itself is there because we wanted to offer different ticket tiers. If we would have had only one ticket tier, we would probably have gone with TopSwap and just put all the tickets there like we did the last 2 years. But because we don't know how many of you want to buy regular tickets and how many of you want to buy premium tickets, we decided to make a machine that will create those ticket types, like it will stamp each ticket with the appropriate tiering when you buy it. And so the ticket is an on-chain contract, and it has one NFT that determines the pricing, where the money gets sent, and what tiers are available. It's kind of like the state of the contract. And then when you interact with it, you're sending money to it, and then you're moving one ticket out, and then you're putting that original NFT back into the contract. And so this means that technically more than one person cannot buy a ticket at the same time, because you have to spend a UTXO and you can't spend it more than once. But if you do it in serial, like one buys one now and then a couple minutes later someone else buys one, it's all fine. It also means that we get to integrate the actual ticket sale on our website. Previous years, we've linked out from bliss.cash to TapSwap, where people go to TapSwap and it's the TapSwap user experience that determines what happens. But now that we can integrate into the website, we are able to create a more custom experience for the actual selling part. And that's going to improve over the years if we keep using this version in the future. So yeah, I guess that kind of sums up what it is. If we do run out of tickets on the website, though, we will of course link to TopSwap as a secondary market and see if anyone is selling their tickets on like secondhand. So if you can't buy any on the website, there might be some on TopSwap that you could buy there instead.
Right. So yeah, everybody can go and of course choose their Layla, exactly like you were choosing your NFTs in the previous year. It's just via this ticket vending machine rather than via TapSwap. It works via Wallet Connect. It works with anything that works with Wallet Connect essentially, but I was using it earlier with Selene, which does work. The one little caveat is that you've got to remember, as always, that Wallet Connect only looks at the first address in your wallet. So you do need to have enough BCH to purchase the Layla that you want to get on the first address in your wallet, whether it's Selene or Cash and Eyes or Paytaka or anything else. So you might need to send all your total balance to yourself, or just at least charge up that address with enough money to make it work. And I believe at the moment we're only supporting like one purchase at a time, right? So if you want to buy 3 or 4 tickets, or you buy a second one to bring someone along, you would buy them one by one, right?
Yes. Also, if you have a lot of small UTXOs, like maybe you have 15 0.1 BCH UTXOs in your wallet, and you don't have any UTXOs large enough to cover for the ticket that you're trying to buy, the website will actually complain a little bit and tell you to consolidate your funds first. This will be fixed eventually, but for now, all you have to do is to send all your money back to yourself, and now you have a big consolidated input and you can pay for it.
Yes. Okay. So that's the ticket buying operation. Obviously, we are going
so
live.
Actually, before we leave the ticket side, we have a ticket that we need to prepare for one of our sponsors. Maybe you want to just buy one on the air and show everything off.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can show it off if you want. You're the master of it. Just set up a screen share and we'll do it. Let the demo gods be kind to us.
All right. Okay. Are we live? Can I go ahead?
Yep.
All right, so this is the BLISS website. I'm going to scroll down and you can see there's 73 tickets available. And so I'm going to buy a premium ticket. It's going to ask me to connect with Wallet Connect. So I'll take my phone and I'll scan that. And you can't see my phone, but I got a dialogue and I'll slide to connect. And so now it loads in the tickets. And I'm going to grab this here, number 9, because it's close and nice. I'm going to click Purchase. And it says Approve in Wallet. And so in my wallet, I now get a dialogue here asking me if I want to buy BLISS Layla number 9 for 1 BCH. I'm going to slide yes. And it said, I purchased that one. I'm going to say yes. And that's it. Now there's 72 tickets available. That's all there is to it.
Boom. As simple as that. Innovation happening. Ticketmaster, we are coming for you. We are going to absolutely decimate the industry of existing tickets once we have this cash tokens and Wallet Connect tech rolled out, large enough, right? That's the idea. So I'm thrilled actually that we're
I mean, we're not going to go there and destroy Ticketmaster. They're just going to adopt it, right? That's the goal.
Yeah, but they're going to have to adopt it
for them, and they adopt it, and they make a great user experience around it, and everyone then get custodial, like fully non-custodial tickets in their own wallets that they control themselves. That's great.
Yeah, no, I know, but the only way to motivate people to jump onto stuff like this is to start out competing them. Then they feel the fire and they're like, oh damn, we got to catch up to this. So I feel like we will be building our own solutions, and it will be up to them to catch up. Basically,
yeah, I hope someone will make a lot better user experience than we are doing right now. I mean, as the host of the BLISS conference, like our focus is the conference, the website, and all of these things are like something we do because we have to. Otherwise, we don't get any tickets sold, we don't get any people to come. But ideally, like we should be able to focus on the actual conference, and there should be some good site where you can buy and sell tickets in a very, very good user-friendly experience way.
Yes, I know there is somebody in the BCH1 hackathon or accelerator that is working on a NFT marketplace. Of course, there's also TapSwap, which if it upgrades to be able to do multiple types of tickets, could be viable for next year. Of course, now we have this new library from Sayoshi Nakamoto. Is that going to be open source, Jonathan?
It is. I think it's already open source. Though it's not like public, like we haven't shouted from the rooftops where it exists. It's an npm library. You can get it if you want like it's named Token Sales. I think Sayoshi is going to talk a little bit more about it later when it's in a better state or something.
Okay, is there anything else you want to say about BLISS in terms of how we're doing it this year, maybe in comparison to previous years, and also maybe for people who haven't been before, give them a bit of an expectation about what they could find there?
I mean, it's 3 days long, same as last year, but it was 2 days the first year. You can watch all the old presentations to get a feel for like the room, the space, and how the presentations themselves are usually set up. It's going to be like before, it's going to be a larger number of really prolific developers in the BCH ecosystem there. I think new for this year is that we're probably going to attract some BTC developers too. In fact, one of our presenters is a person who's been developing on the BTC side quite a bit and recently participated in the BLISS hackathon. And so you'll get to hear like an outsider's perspective on how BCH has developed over time.
I think, yeah, it's definitely a good thing for developers. I recommend every developer to get involved. But for my point, I don't think you need to be a developer. And I think people who've come previously who were not developers have had an absolutely fantastic time. It is, at least, of course, I'm biased, but it is the #1 place every year that you can meet the builders and people making stuff happen in the BCH ecosystem, and the number of collaborations and business deals and friendships and stuff that comes out of it is absolutely enormous, like more than we can even track and keep up with. So anybody who has been there, I'm sure will testify to that. They have a great time when they're there, and then afterwards suddenly everything starts working a little bit easier because you know a lot of the right people, you know who to talk to, you've met them, you've shaken their hand, you've seen them in person, and then everything just starts to work. So if anybody is relatively new to the BCH ecosystem, coming back to the BCH ecosystem, or has maybe watched the previous editions remotely, just being there in person is simply just another experience. So I would highly, highly recommend you get involved just for that reason alone. Okay, all right. What about the upgrade as well? We have to hit on that as well. Of course, we will be celebrating the Layla upgrade. This time around, it will be the first day of the conference rather than the third day, which is a slight tweak. But tell me about the upgrade itself and why people should be excited for that.
Yeah, so the Layla upgrade is coming in May, and it contains 3 relatively large changes. Maybe it's 4. I don't actually have a perfect idea of all the things.
It's 4.
I know that
4.
loops are coming, and loops are a massive deal. I know that functions are coming, and without loops, those would be a humongous deal. And with loops, they kind of like cover a bit of the same space. It's still really important, and people are going to do amazing things with it. And then there are all the bitwise operators, which allows us to kind of cover up the last part of the arithmetic and the mathematics side of the virtual machine engine. And there's one more. Pay to script, right. And the increased commitment sizes. Overall, I think the Layla upgrade is going to take BCH scripting language from being something that is functional, reliable, but not modern, to actually being modern. I think after this, if you're used to writing coding in like any other language, there's going to be like clear, everything you want to do is probably going to work out just fine. I know that loops in particular allows us to make contracts that can handle a lot of the edge cases that were really difficult to handle before. If we had loops before making our vending machine this year for the BLISS contract, then we would probably have had a solution to multi-input validation. But right now, as a result, only one output is being used for your funding when you pay for things.
So we'll have obviously the upgrade going live, and I don't actually know, I'm speculating, but I would expect that there will likely be at least one, if not multiple people making announcements of things going live that are currently underway on ShipNet. Of course, that's the whole point of having the 6-month window between the lock-in and the go live date, so that people can test and also prep new releases. So that's another excellent part of being at BLISS, is that you can be there at live as things are announced and often talk directly to the person launching them as well too, to give them immediate feedback or to ask any questions. I don't know, sometimes you have the inside scoop on this, Jonathan. What's the story there?
Well, I might have, but I'm not sharing in that case. Come to BLISS, figure out on your own. I will say though that one part of this upgrade, right, of this modernization of the scripting language to include these loops and functions and bitwise operators, and essentially completing all the missing gaps, is that this puts BCH in a position where if you have something that you think is really, really important that blockchains should have, you can now implement whatever it is you want as an optional opt-in feature implemented in script. So the clearest example we can give of this, of course, at the moment is the quantum resistance discussions. There are people out there who are really keen on making sure that we get quantum resistance now, as soon as technically possible, because it could be a threat. And then there are people who are like, quantum doesn't matter. No one can prove it. Hey, show me when they can factor number 25 or something like that. When they should like ridicule the problem and say like it doesn't matter. It's fictional. And then there's the group of people in between, right? The people who aren't expert and who aren't strictly like, I know exactly what I think about it, who go around and consider the situation, be like, okay, it might be a problem. It doesn't look like a problem right now. Some people say it is, some people say it doesn't. And for you, it would be interesting if like there is a solution to it, but you do maybe have to use it right now because you don't know if it's valuable. And Jason, who is the man behind most of these upgrades, he is building Quantum Root, and that is a quantum secure vault that allows you to spend money in a quantum secure way. That has a lot of benefits. It does a bunch of cross-input signature aggregation. It does a lot of things, and it doesn't take up particularly much more space in your transactions when you use it. It's actually fairly efficient too. And after the May upgrade, after Layla, we expect that he is going to release Quantum Vault in some form, ready for wallets to use. And some wallets will probably adopt it. And we're going to see a real solution to the quantum problem in terms of crypto. And it will be entirely up to you if you want to adopt it. You can say, yeah, sure, and jump on and go ahead and be secured against that particular threat. Or you can say, no, it's still not real, and not use it at all. There's zero impact because the implementation falls entirely in script, which means it is optional. You get to choose when you use it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of in two minds about quantum. I'm no expert, clearly, but I have been reading up on it a little bit. My instinct and my observation is that so far the skeptics, I think they have some good points. Like, I don't feel like we're in imminent danger. You know, some people, there's sort of a skeptical side and there's kind of an alarmist side that are like, we need everything right now, otherwise everything's going to be broken. And, you know, we even talked about quantum, I believe, briefly on the original BLISS panel in 2024 and said, okay, you know, by 2026, we're probably going to need to be thinking about this more seriously. By 2028 or 2029, you know, we're almost certainly going to need some solutions. And that seems to be kind of where things are starting to land. Of course, I mean, it's still a couple of years away, but it still takes a couple of years to get everything prepared for it. That's even in that most extreme case. You know, there's of course also people who are saying, oh, it won't be around for decades, if it's even a problem like at all. But it seems very clear to me that it's the kind of thing that it's better to be prepared for and not need it than not be prepared for and need it, right? There's a huge downside if you don't prepare.
There's also,
yes, right?
Like we also live in a time period right now where predicting the future is exceptionally hard because the amount of intelligence walking around on the planet is drastically increasing due to like LLMs and inference. And so it might be that like 3 years ago, someone makes an estimation and say, 2040 is when we should care about this. But those assumptions might not hold true because we're seeing a lot of fields being accelerated quite drastically by the AIs and the LLMs. And I know there's a lot of people out there like throwing shade and hating on LLMs for all the problems they are causing to society at the moment with like high RAM prices and essentially shortages of everything because the AI giant wants it all. But I have a hard time seeing people throwing that amount of money on something that doesn't actually work. And of course, people can be doing it, but now we're talking so many different large, meaningful corporations spending essentially billions and billions, like really, really large numbers. And so there's probably something to it. And if you just scroll Twitter for a while, you'll see suddenly just today, I saw a snippet of video that's roughly a minute long, which is just like visual effects things, like if you were to make a movie. But the same thing doing it 10 years ago would have costed millions of dollars, and now it costs like 30 seconds of compute. And so what if you take that kind of advancement and you apply it to material sciences, or you apply it to medicine or some other research field, and suddenly you're folding proteins in ways humans hadn't had time to fold before. And eventually you might stumble upon some actual really meaningful improvements in the materials sciences space. Maybe you find some new material that's going to let you hold cold enough temperatures to actually advance the quantum field. I don't know, right? So yeah, I put myself squarely in the group of people who would like to see a quantum solution exist and get mature, so that I can actually use it later if I end up needing it. That's kind of where I land.
Yes, I mean, there's also an element to it where, regardless of the tech, which is you want to have tech that is prepared, you want to make sure it's easy to use, you want to make sure it's secure, of course. You've also got to roll it out to everyone. Different wallets need to. It's not as simple as we have the answer, but you need to roll it out to everyone, which takes time. You need to get it adopted and so forth. But there's even separate to all of that, which is its own big kettle of fish. You also have maybe some community debate about the best way to handle the problem at a macro scale, right? Because there's the possibility that people will want to manage, quote unquote, the way quantum impacts the chain as a whole. For instance, there is Satoshi's stack of 1 million plus BCH that is sitting there mostly in pay to public key addresses, that is not only somewhat unsecure against quantum, it's actually totally unsecure because it doesn't even have a hash in front of it. You have all kinds of other coins that are sitting there lying around. There's proposals ranging from we shouldn't, interfere, like this is disrupting people's property rights. Let's just, if or when somebody invents a quantum computer, then they can just grab the money. That's fine. It's kind of a quantum bounty. There's also people who think we should set a deadline at which we should just burn all non-quantum secured coins. That's more popular, maybe a little bit. I don't think it's popular in general, but certainly in the BTC community, they're starting to think about that because they're so stressed about their market dump from people selling. And there's in between variations where people say maybe you could have a phased approach. Maybe you could even add a new consensus upgrade that only allowed a certain amount of older coins to be spent.
No, let me jump in. So this discussion is a very interesting discussion. But say Quantum Root actually gets out there, like at BLISS. Maybe it gets launched or it comes a month later or whatever. And a year after that, in 2027, some people weren't really happy about how maybe that particular implementation solved the particular problem. And so they make their own quantum walls for their own solutions. And maybe 5 years after that, you have like 6 or 7 really big and they have network effect and they're proven. And you get back to the table and you start having the very discussion that you're talking about, but under the context there is already like 6 or 7 viable, working, and mature solutions to the problem. And then you ask yourself, like, okay, is it sensible to burn Satoshi's coin? Well, the question might instead be, hey, Satoshi's coins have already moved on and is now in a quantum secure vault, right? Maybe he doesn't move them because there's nothing better to move them to from his perspective, right? Maybe he doesn't take the threat seriously now, or doesn't take the solution seriously now. So if we build the tools now, the discussion is going to be very different later. You can also imagine that we have these solutions and we have had them for like 5-10 years, and we have seen the quantum machines become slightly stronger. They can factor larger numbers. They can get to work their ways on more data sets and whatnot. And you end up in a position that, okay, now we can actually see it's about to happen, right? Now we know for more, without any vagueness or uncertainty, that within 2 years they are actually going to crack those keys. That would be a better time to discuss all those potential violations of property right in order to create some kind of safety net for some people. But discussing it now, when there doesn't even exist viable solutions to move them to, it's premature.
Yes, well, fair enough, but I'm just trying to front run this as always. We've got to get it into the community mindset because it will take a little while. It's the same as anything. It's the same discussion as raising the block size limit. Oh, we already have plenty of space. Oh, we'll figure that out when it happens. Oh, we don't need an algorithm now because, that'll be a problem for later. Like everything in engineering is like that. And further to engineering in public discourse, the same, which is that you can't just suddenly have something be coming up into the conversation. The ideal is that people who are involved have time to research it, they check it out, they come to their position, people debate back and forth. So that's why I'm starting. I don't think we need to panic about quantum, but I'm very glad that we're working it into the conversation, basically. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy that we're building solutions. That's where I stand. And those solutions, if people want to use them, they get to use them. And if they don't want to use them, then, well, as long as they are fully aware of the risk they are taking, then that is a risk they are taking.
Well, people are maybe not fully aware. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
They need to look into it. There's all kinds of people with stacks of BCH. Also, we're going to see, of course, some element of data, like you said. If we have the solutions out there, we'll be able to see on chain how many people have moved to quantum secure alternatives, and we'll be able to track that on a dashboard, which will be quite interesting to see if people or start migrating across when they feel confident in doing that, or when they feel it's necessary. If older coins are moving, if newer coins are moving, like what's going on, that's going to be super interesting to dig into. But yeah, of course, this is one of the many things you'll be able to discuss with people at BLISS. I'm sure there'll be at least a little bit of discussion about it. Now, you mentioned AI and the increasing intelligence available around the planet. I want to get into that a little bit because you are obviously heavily involved day to day in BCH development, and I'm seeing a big trend in general of AI being built into BCH related workflows. Seems like an excellent time for this technology to just take off, given that we have the VM upgrades in place. If this had come around in 2024, if things had already been that advanced 2 years ago, I think we would have been in a much worse position to capitalize. But whether, luck, skill, or fate doesn't really matter. BCH seems to be coming good at the right time. So I was wondering if you could comment on, your views about how AI, HyperbitcoinAIzation, is that going to happen? What's the feeling?
Yeah, so I'll start with just outlining my own take on the LLM and AI current state of how good they are, right? So when I started trying LLMs some year ago, the results were pretty bad, right? Just a few years ago, essentially all they did was very confidently lead me down bad paths, and I ended up doing no, this doesn't right. I have to go back. It just doesn't. I have to go back. And eventually I found myself realizing that there are some things they are really good at. They are really good at finding information that is well propagated out there. So if I need to know what a command line flag is for some tool I have, like how do I use FFmpeg to convert this file to that file, they are excellent at that. But if we're talking about the coding perspective, I didn't see it as something that was viable in a ecosystem that is centered around immutability, right? Make something wrong once, you can't revert it. The blockchain don't go backwards. And so I kind of stayed away from the LLMs personally, quite significantly. And there are some people at GP who are more frontier and who are doing a bunch of LLM things on their own. And they swear and say it's a great thing. And last year, this 2025, I have revisited various LLMs, and I finally found use cases where it starts working for me, and I have begun using LLMs myself. Now, note, when I say that I've begun using LLMs, I mean that I have started using them for discovery. I started using them for evaluation and preparation, things that let me better understand a problem and evaluate the problem scope, right? So if I have, for example, I want to do this thing, then I can ask it
given these contexts, what are the options? And it provides a list of options, and then I can go research each of those options. And it allows me to find the options faster than if I had tried to mentally sort out what the options are myself. And at some point, when one of the person in the ecosystem, Torik, showed me he's building an LLM-based contract converter from EVM to BCH. I played around with it, and it did something. It wasn't working, and it was very, very clear when you looked at the output it gave that it's going to cause problems to some degree. But it actually did things, and it worked with the right toolings, and it did create things that were syntactically correct, just didn't do the thing you wanted them to do. And so I started asking myself, okay, if it can do all the things that people say online and all the things that I see everywhere, I wonder, when will it start to understand the XO project? Right? When will it get to a point where LLMs can actually help me do the hard problem that I'm focused on? And so we have these articles that we have published, and they are very, very detailed about what it does. And so one of the first things I did after we published our first article is that I asked an LLM to look at those articles, and then I gave it another one of my templates, and I said, tell me how it works. And it told me how it doesn't work. And so I used that information, its inference, to determine what it cannot understand on its own. And I made notes. And then when we made our follow-up article, I made sure to address those notes. And then I repeated it. So after the second article, I gave it both articles, and I gave it a template that wasn't really perfect. And I asked, how does it work? Tell me how it works. And it started getting things eerily right after just the second article. And I have since figured out that if you provide the right context, if you provide the right guidance before you ask it questions, you can actually get it to do some pretty impressive stuff. So 2 of the templates that I mentioned earlier, the escrow template and the auction template, I actually didn't have an intent to sit down and build those before the first release of XO. But when I asked them, an LLM, to make a template for me, and I looked at the template, and me as the subject matter expert on these templates could not find the fault in it, then I decided to put that template aside and then go over it manually a couple times, clean up some things, and then I asked it to do the harder part and not do the vault, and actually not do the, let's see which. I can't remember which order. And anyway, one of these problems I felt was harder, and so I asked it to do the harder problem, and it created a similar, well fleshed out template. And I couldn't tell if that template was going to fail either. And so, I think it's going to go fast once all the data is out there. And I think building new applications on BCH that gets adoption through these templates is going to be very, very interesting.
Yes, we certainly seem to be coming good at the right time. I just feel like it's very fortunate that we have the
I want to make really clear though, right? Because again, I work at GP. GP handles money, right? We do not have AI as part of our natural workflow at GP. We do not use AI code as is in any way, shape, or form. We might learn from AI, but all code that gets written passes review by humans on multiple steps. And so no slop is going to get released from us. And we don't expect AI to pick up to the point where we change those rules. It's going to be like that going forward. Strict review.
Yes, well, of all the companies in the world, I think GP would be one of the last ones that I would be expecting to be producing AI slop or letting AI slop come to be part of the part of the situation there. Maybe other companies will slopify at quite of a faster rate, and I guess that's something every company needs to handle individually. You're trying to balance that trade-off, right, between staying on the cutting edge and having those tools versus ignoring them.
By all means, use AI to accelerate your workflows. By all means, build fast. But when you get to the point where you start interacting with the blockchain and immutability starts to matter, and particularly when it starts to matter with other people's money and not your own, do proper research, write your own tests, make sure that it actually works. That's all I can say on that matter.
Yes, like you said, with BCH, it's kind of a one and done type of situation. If you put your money into a bad contract, that's it. You're screwed. There's no AI in the world that is going to help you get it out.
Exactly.
If you mess it up the first time. But I think this is also going to be a big topic at BLISS, and I'm very glad that the BCH community is embracing that. It's a very rapidly expanding frontier, so it can be hard to kind of stay on top of what's going on. But the communities and the people, the companies that adopt it faster and certainly learn how to make effective use of it are going to just massively outstrip those that don't. Like you said, there's simply on cost alone, the cost advantage of using those tools in the right way is just absolutely enormous. So it's going to be a mega change to the world economy.
Actually, let me go shield XO again. I'm sorry, but the problem just keeps coming up. I can't help it. So when you're using AI to generate your code, it's great if the thing you're using it for isn't the critical code path in your application. When I say critical, I mean the parts that handle money. And so when I look at the XO engine and the libraries, we have a very strict isolation principle. So we are keeping all the secrets and all the entropy isolated inside of the engine from other parts of the engine, and also isolated from the actual user. So it's very, very hard to mess things up. So when XO comes out, if you decide to use AI to generate templates and build apps on top of XO, then at least you can know that all the code that manages the private keys and all the secrets and all the state management, all the really complicated things that can fail in irreversible ways are actually not important for you to build yourself. Right? They will already be there for you, and they will be like stable and reliable, and you get to actually run fast on top of it. Because if you fail, then it's only your specific use case that fails. It's only a specific template or a specific thing that fails. It's never the actual core inner part that's going.
Indeed. So we're well positioned for this acceleration. The singularity. Are we near the singularity? What do you think about that?
I don't know, honestly.
I don't know. Like you said, advances in medicine, health, possibly.
So so this is going to be a bit of a personal take here, but so I look at humanity as, you can either argue that we are like apes, right? Essentially, we're biology. But if you look at humanity and you look at where they have done meaningful progress over the last like millions of years, it's all going to be very, very short time frame, very like the last couple hundred years, where essentially all the progress has happened. And I think that might not be biology driving. I think that'd be memetics driving. I think that's culture mostly, and the fact that we're able to pass information from one part to another. And so if you consider a human to be two parts, where one part is genetic and one part is memetic, one of them is this meat flesh thing, and the other one is the emergent patterns of the brain. And the emergent patterns of the brain are self-replicating through memetics. Like I tell my kids how the world looks, they hear it through their ears, and their internal brain networks are formed based on those inputs. Meaning that we have two driving forces. one genetic, one memetic. And with the LLMs coming up, we might find ourselves having a new substrate for the memetic part that replicates faster than the human biology, right? We are not making babies fast enough to outpace the data centers. And so the data centers might be where the memetic part goes, the intelligence. And we might actually find ourselves in something. Now, that's just speculation, all of it. I have no clue what the future is going to look at from that perspective. It's just fascinating, is what it is.
Yes, indeed. Well, should be a pretty interesting few years coming up. I'm feeling somewhat bullish, actually probably quite a lot bullish, that AI is significantly going to boost the BCH community on its path to a BTC flippening and then to global reserve currency, just because the leverage it gives us is so enormous. For a small community, it really accelerates what we can do.
I have to say that I'm unsure about the flipping side of it, because they also have LLMs, right? And they have a larger network effect than us. So their information advantage is actually higher than ours. So their LLMs in theory should be more efficient than ours. But we also have the better tooling underneath, so we can do more with the thing we have and they can with the thing they have. So I don't know if LLMs are going to be helping us in the flipping side. But I know that if we talk about BCH versus fiat, then the technology side of money is going to win over the less technology side of money. So yeah, it's going to help there at least.
Well, I would say the LLMs help with your technical problems. They don't help with your political ones. So I'm feeling good. Feeling good about.
What if they actually are helping with the political ones? In some discussions I've had with some of the BCH people, we're essentially landed on the idea that it is actually important for us in the BCH ecosystem to provide more and better documentation, not because we have users of it, but because LLMs are going to ingest everything they come across. And if we provide good, clear, valuable information to LLMs, then they are going to spew that to the other people who don't believe in us and make believers.
Yes.
So,
well, that's true.
I have no idea what's going to happen in the future. It's just fascinating.
That's true. Maybe it will solve political problems in terms of if people are able to converge on the right solution faster via independently checking with LLMs that they trust and helping them reach the conclusion that somebody else is telling them about, but they wouldn't believe. Like, that person couldn't convince them, and maybe even other people couldn't convince them, but by talking to AI, they sort of come to the same conclusion. Or maybe it will cause more fragmentation as people trust different AIs that start to disagree more and more vehemently. I wonder if that's likely.
I think the most likely outcome is that somewhere along the line, we're going to recognize that humans are herd animals, and that the entire thing that was like beneficial for the big blocker side in 2017, where they constricted some of the communication because they were tired of us talking about big blocks, ended up creating echo chambers where new people come in and all they hear is small blocks is good. I think LLMs are going to kind of break that down and show potentially even a more nuanced version, and it's not going to be, they're not going to have that advantage anymore.
Yes, very true. Okay, speaking of that, we have the huge story over the last couple of weeks that we haven't covered on the show yet, which is the Epstein Files. The US Department of Justice released 3 million Epstein files. Of course, I mean, it's good that we got the files, but I have to start by saying the scam is, of course, continuing. There's been an insane cover-up and distraction. Firstly, not even they initially promised, I think, 6 million files, but they only released 3 million files. Then of the 3 million files that they have released, those have already been redacted in a lot of parts, and people have been trying to find ways around that. But you can be sure that there was more than 6 million files originally. So there's like several layers of filtering is being done before people are hearing anything close to the truth. I've even heard that there's apparently evidence or whatever that when they were doing the raids on Epstein to get these files, apparently in some cases they actually had told him ahead of time that they were coming to get the files, so he had time to clear things up and delete the most incriminating evidence and whatever. You have the New York Times, who reviewed the Epstein file with, quote, Epstein emails reveal a bygone elite. The disgraced financier's recently released documents are steeped in a clubby world that is all but gone, end quote. If you believe that, you're a moron. Of course it's not gone. That's completely fake. It still exists now. Epstein himself has been suicided, which didn't happen. And in fact, people are digging up problems with the body. Maybe they switched him out and moved him to some other safe place. His Fortnite account was reactivating very, very suspiciously, and evidence of that has now also been scrubbed. Ghislaine Maxwell was the only person who's been put in prison, but she has not actually been put in prison because they just had her on the BBC. Also looks like a body double. She's probably out of prison. They're now using another fake person instead. There has been zero accountability to anybody involved in this entire thing. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody is being investigated. Pam Bondi has been refusing to take questions on it and saying everybody should be more concerned about the Dow and the NASDAQ. Kash Patel openly perjured himself, saying there was no evidence of child exploitation, and we're now seeing millions of files with lots of evidence of that. So basically, just the satanic, pedophilic cannibals that are running the world are still completely in control, and all these files, even that we do have from 2017 or earlier, are already 7 years, 8 years out of date. No doubt things have been completely moved to a new operation, and so we're now getting these leaks that are, so far outdated as to be irrelevant. So I think that's just my general take on the whole thing. Before we get into, there was a lot of Bitcoin related stuff, but my general take is, obviously more transparency is better, but really nobody should be fooled that this is anything like a complete accounting of it, or it's just a drip feed of stuff that is now irrelevant. Basically, it's still impacting public perception though, which is good. I don't know, do you have a general overall view on these releases?
So I've read a lot of things in a lot of places. I haven't read the actual files more than snippets that people go into various things. And to me, it's all gray, right? Because not only is the files incomplete, I don't even know if I trust whatever the source of those files was. And in the end, it's like powerful people play powerful games against each other or with each other or with whatever. And I just want to build Bitcoin and get money and state separated. So I don't want to deal with all of this.
Well, we definitely can. And that's, another good thing is that you can just opt out of this entire nonsense. I was hearing about, apparently there's all this evidence about Epstein's involvement with the 2008 financial crisis, and he was involved in Bear Stearns, and he cashed out like massive amounts of money, and then they later blew up, and then he got into JP Morgan, and then there's all this stuff, so you can go and dig into the rabbit hole for anybody who is interested in all that. Jet, did you have a take on this general phenomenon? Can't hear you.
I have a question that I'm not sure if either of you could answer, because I know you said no one else was arrested other than Ghislaine, but wasn't Lex Wexner, I think his name is, the owner of Victoria's Secret, didn't he also get arrested?
Maybe he got arrested. I don't know. As far as I'm aware, it's only Ghislaine that's in prison. Which, if somebody said it was pronounced Glenn,
I've heard Ghislaine, Ghislaine, Glenn. It's
definitely not Ghislaine. I don't think that's it.
No, I remember when all this anyway, that's pointless. I remember that's how they called her unflagrant for 6 months. The funniest thing to me though was Jeff emailing himself about Bill Gates and being mad that he was banned from Xbox Live, and then being he's trying to get me to. Man, I can't remember. It was specifically just Jeff almost documenting all of his beef with Bill Gates personally and talking about how Bill had gotten an STI from his adventures with Jeff and all of this. That's about it. I feel pretty detached from this. Like, Canadian, and I'm sure the impact that it has on my life like exists, but it's like so far removed from my day to day that I just kind of look at it as like a horrible drama.
Well, because you have some people who are melting down, and there's been a couple of videos of people in public just being like, guys, like, we're ruled by these cannibals that are just like raping children, and everyone's acting normal. And you got to feel for those people, right? Because I mean, in a way, yeah, maybe you and I don't know about Jonathan as well. Like, if you've dug into all this stuff, if you realize like that the entire financial system is a scam, or people who've looked into like the way governments operate or anything, like the media, then you know, when this stuff comes out, you're kind of like, okay, that is definitely horrible and fucked up. And hopefully, you know, we can do what we can to stop it, but we're kind of already working on what we can do to stop it, you know, about as hard as we can, right? So it's already as simple as, okay, problem, solution, okay, more like, but for some other people, it's just like this entire worldview that they had is just crumbling apart as they realize everything is fake and how much more messed up everything is than they, you know, initially realized, right? So it's very understandable that some people are having those reactions, but they're having that reaction in a context where everyone else is already knew about it, and so it's just like, welcome to the party, or don't know about it and are still sort of unaware and is just going to tune it out or be like, who's this crazy guy, you know?
Yeah, I think it is very strange to me to be surprised by this. Like, the US government was giving black men syphilis, like, just to figure out what happened. Like, this isn't like out of the realm of possibility that they would do weird sexual experiments. And I just remembered though, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, one of his victims was like a Yale professor, and he has now, this Yale professor, I think his name's like David something, but he spent the past like week being like, oh, you know, my conversations with Jeffrey, my involvement with Epstein was not a big deal. And it's like, how did Ted get so many things right? I'm not trying to like, you know, dismiss, you know, or say that his violence is acceptable, but man, he got so many things right.
Yes. Well, the truth emerges in the end, and I mean, there's been a whole series of course, people caught up in this who have been doing the whole. I was in there, but I wasn't that involved. And then day by day, Jason Calacanis, the same thing on the All In podcast. When it first came out, oh, I met him once in the 90s. It was at like this one breakfast or like whatever. And then, of course, more information came out, Reid Hoffman, like the same thing. They have this whole story, and everybody involved is just trying to scurry as far away from it as possible and say, it wasn't us. But the more that comes out, of course, the more it was them. And not only were they lying, you know, about the whole thing in the first place, but then they lie provably every step as it comes out. You know, it's pretty messed up.
Well, I am kind of surprised that I have not seen as many like pro-Trump people being like, Jesus Christ, Trump, like, come on, man. There's like now a cascading like list of actions that you've done over the past couple months. That's like, something's got like, so many Trump people are just so pro-Trump that it catches me off guard, I think.
Yeah, cult of personality, I guess. Okay, all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the actual Bitcoin-related stuff. There's so many different threads to what's going on in all of that, but there's certainly a thread with Bitcoin. So starting with the big blockers, there's essentially two people that could have been, you know, associated with the big blocker camp that sort of show up in the files. Those two people are Gavin Andresen, who was, of course, Satoshi's sort of appointed successor to lead Bitcoin Core, and also very prominently a fan of big blocks, as Satoshi was. And secondly was Brian Armstrong, who is the CEO of and founder, I guess, co-founder, I think, of Coinbase. So Gavin is in there twice, once or maybe three times, I think, but only once where it's actually him, where Epstein sends him a message and says, can we meet up? Like, I want to see what you're working on, kind of thing. And Gavin says to him, no, sorry, I'm busy, sent from my iPhone. And that's it. So that was in 2011. So people are, of course, looking back to, I think this is a couple of months after he did that famous visit to the CIA. But I would need to double check. Anyway, so Jeffrey was trying to get around him and he was just like, nope, I'm not interested. He's also in there, and we don't have a screenshot of this because I couldn't dig it up just before the show, but there's a part where Epstein is talking with Joy Ito, who was the head of the MIT Media Lab, and they're discussing about, we've managed to get the funding into the Media Lab to hire 3 of the 5 core developers who are critical to everything that is going on, which is Gavin, Vladimir, and one other guy. Can't remember which one it was. And so then they say, oh, wow, this is a big win for us because now we've got control of these guys via the funding. Now, that was, of course, that's true that Gavin did, get that funding and stuff, but he then shortly after became disenfranchised with the whole thing. The block size war happened. He left the MIT Media Lab and he was kind of out of there. So I feel like that's about as good, for having appeared in the files at all. That's probably the best exculpatory evidence you can possibly get. I don't know. What do you make of that, Jonathan? Are you worried about Gavin being compromised by Epstein?
No, I'm not worried about Gavin. I think Gavin's great. No, I read somewhere someone else also made a comment that said that the reason Gavin gave this response is because someone gave Gavin a heads up of some of the things that were going on, and so Gavin had some information. I don't know how true that is. I'm not going to speculate on it at this point, but I read it somewhere. But I think a more interesting part isn't the fact that they hired people in that space or that they are happy that they managed to exert influence. I think the more interesting part is their motivation for why they wanted that influence. And I think I read somewhere else, someone pointed out this, that they wanted to make Bitcoin more regulatory appealable, right? They wanted to make sure that it was likely that it's going to get regulatory approval so that you can build its financial instruments on top, and that getting their people in there to agree to, I think, the small block agenda or something like that was key to achieving that goal. And if so, if that is the actual case, then on one hand, I can say it's like very sad for the future of peer-to-peer electronic cash, which had a very great run and now has to fight a new uphill bill in order to regain that momentum. But it is also kudos to them, right? Because in that case, they actually set a goal and they achieved their goal with extreme precision, right? They're really good at what they're doing, so we should never underestimate what they will do in the future if these are adversaries of ours.
Yes. Okay. Well, that hits on the point of the second big block affiliated people who is in the files, which is honestly to a much less degree, honestly, but Brian Armstrong, who has an email which says, quote, among other things, quote, the block size debate about how Bitcoin will scale continues in the background. We are working with a number of the teams behind the scenes to help ensure the protocol keeps scaling and is not held back by any of the early idealists. We remain optimistic that Bitcoin's ingenious upgrade mechanism, miner voting, will work as designed. My guess is that the network will upgrade to 2 megabyte blocks in the coming month or two, and once this first quote-unquote hard fork is shown to be successful, the price of Bitcoin will respond accordingly by going up. In the future, hard forks will happen periodically, perhaps once a year, which will allow Bitcoin to continue improving as a protocol. Thank you for your support, end quote. So this is Brian Armstrong. Now, this is quite interesting because this quote specifically about is not held back by any of the early idealists has been promoted, I guess, let's say, or has been seized upon by small block people to say, look, see, we told you hijacking Bitcoin is all fake. We were the ones who were the early supporters of Bitcoin, and BCH is actually the one who got on the wrong track. I feel like it reminds me personally a lot of this whole Satoshi comment. The protocol will be set in stone and the core design cannot be changed, which a lot of people completely misunderstand. I think what Brian is actually saying here is that at the time of this, when he's saying that they're going to try and raise the blocks to 2 megabytes, that was also when people like Greg Maxwell, etc., were trying to create the whole, FUD about like we can't do hard forks and it needs to be soft forks only, and 1 megabyte is the sufficient limit. I think that's what he's talking about with idealists, but of course everyone can make up their own mind. Also, the fact that he was telling them about the upgrade to 2 megabyte blocks has been, this is evidence that Epstein was trying to create large blocks, when it's kind of the opposite, which is that this is not new information. Brian Armstrong publicly signed the SegWit 2x agreement, and everybody knew that Coinbase was working on bigger blocks. Like that's, in fact, he was heavily roasted for that at the time. So trying to seize on that as information when it was all public seems a bit of a stretch.
So we can take a neutral approach, or we can take on our conspiracy hats and dive deep into various bits. So I'm gonna take a conspiracy hat for a short moment, and I'm gonna say that if your goal is to neuter the concept of peer-to-peer cash and prevent it from threatening your existing business model and existing power structures, then of course you're going to bet on both sides. You're going to pay both sides, and you're going to make sure they fight each other, and whoever wins is the party that is now indebted to you. So by just putting money on both ends of it, you create a situation where you have control no matter which side wins. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of the outcome. Like in the end, people with influence did what people with influence do. And you can argue that the hijacking goes in by the other direction. Sure, I've been telling for years that Bitcoin died as a strict, rigid structure, 2013 somewhere, when Satoshi walked away and no longer defined Bitcoin. And we have had multiple forks, we have multiple chains split, multiple different directions taking. And the Bitcoin BTC side is no more similar to what Bitcoin was back then than BCH or any of the many other chains actually are. They will argue they are. Everyone seems to be arguing that they are. But in reality, we're all different, right? That's the thing we share. We share that we are different from that one. Did we want to have the Bitcoin which had the 21 quadrillion whatever inflation bug in it? No, we did not. We wanted change. We wanted it to work differently than what it did before. And the soft fork versus hard fork part, right? Just because we constrain and reduce the set of things you can do rather than expand it, doesn't mean the set hasn't changed, right? You still change the set. It's still changed from the original plan that was before. And it's fine. It's perfectly fine to have different visions for where you want to go. And if the goal you had was, let's make digital store of value, and let's make a great speculative, interesting asset, then by all means, it's extreme success story for driving Bitcoin to the point where it is today. Hats off on that. That's not what I want. I want peer-to-peer cash. I want a medium of exchange. But hats off if you manage to create what it was you wanted to do. Conspiracy theories goes in all various weird ways here. And I think it's very easy to throw shade and tell bad stuff about others and put a bunch of blame. But that's not my take. My take is a lot of people did what they thought was best. Some of them had a hidden agenda, some of them did not. And we get to see some of those hidden agendas come up here. But just because they were hidden didn't mean that, internally on their own side, they were explicitly malicious. So, yeah, I don't know.
Interesting, interesting take. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know that I quite agree with that, but I will say that, from my point of view, the whole Epstein Files has been quite vindicating to the big blockers, because Gavin Andresen didn't want to be involved, and Brian Armstrong, who was in Coinbase, that's often brought about as evidence of the big blockers, but it's they've basically not been involved at all since 2017. They support BCH, not even very well, and at that time, and then since then, where's Coinbase now? They're just doing everything coin. They're not involved in BCH. They haven't been really since 2017, right?
Yeah, I mean, the vindication is absolutely warranted, right? there was a ton of accusations on censorship, a ton of accusation of influence going around. And we can see pretty clearly now that influence did happen. Censorship did happen. A lot of these things did talk with each other and did act the way we claim they did. And it had an effect on the world that we actually live in. But I don't think it's reality happens to be. And you can either claim that it's bad because it is, or you can claim that it's good because it is, but in the end, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, what matters is what you're doing now going forward. And so it's great that we're vindicated. It's great that we can see that, okay, as it turns out, we lost because of these things. Well, let's not lose the battle again then, right? Let's still keep going and let's do better. I know that when the Shin split happened in 2017, I was 100% convinced I was on the winning side. I had no doubt in my mind because all the data I had pointed in the same direction. It was only a couple of years later that I realized that all the people who thought like BitBlock was going to win had been mistreated for years and left the ecosystem. And I realized that, hey, okay, so I was like one of the hardcore believers who still was there. Everyone else kind of walked away, and I didn't see them walk away because month after month after month, the fees were slightly worse. The opinions they had just got treated worse and worse. When they tried to talk to people, they got silenced or they got kicked out or banned from forums, whatnot, or they got all these toxic responses, and they didn't want to be part of a toxic part because they just wanted to make good money for the world. And so people left, and I was one of the people who was still standing, and I thought all the other people that I had seen before who held the same opinions as I were still standing too. They're not. They weren't. And so my prediction for where it was going was wrong back then. Now, I can learn from that. I can absolutely learn from that. And I can say that if someone is being treated poorly, they will leave. And so the important part is to make sure that all the people who hold the opinions that I value are treated well instead of poorly. And then we can grow our network effect. And when we have a strong network effect, we can actually create money for the world. And so, yeah, this is what I'm doing with BLISS, right? This is why I'm working on it and making sure that people can meet up and have a good time, because I realized that we can't win if we don't play the right game.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, we got to move on a little bit to the small blockers. We've done our accountability. I mean, obviously, clearly not a perfect track record, but it is very notable that it was only those two guys that have been, implicated in some way or another. One was straight out of there, and the other hasn't been really involved since. Of course, that's not, everyone can make up their own mind, but I feel like all things considered, we got a pretty good result out of that. The small blockers, though, have been in a bit of a disaster because basically all of what is in Who Killed Bitcoin has been vindicated. Adam, now Andy Back, as Epstein called him, and Austin Hill from Blockstream seem to have gone to meet Epstein directly on his island, Little St. James, where all the sketchy stuff was going down. He also has invested in Blockstream and then later divested, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised if more details come out about that. The core devs were funded via the MIT Media Lab. Brian Bishop, who is the moderator of the Bitcoin Dev mailing list, where he gatekeeps the BIPs, was involved with Epstein for trying to get funding on his designer babies startups, which is absolutely horrific if you think about the fact that this is a guy who at the time was already a known convicted pedophile, and he was trying to grow babies with him. That's just unbelievably sick. But anyway, he's heavily involved in there trying to pal up to Epstein. And Jeremy Rubin and the Chain Code co-founders, whose names are Suhas Daftuar and Alex Morkos, are also both in there setting up meetups with Epstein. So as a combination of all of these things coming out, plus the information of Epstein talking to Peter Thiel and others about how do we, influence regulation around BTC and so forth. It's become this like massive story that I would say the general perception has swung very heavily to the view that BTC was hijacked, which previously was this, dismissed big blocker conspiracy theory until 2024 with hijacking Bitcoin by Roger, which changed the narrative significantly. And I would say this incident has then kind of doubled down on that. And suddenly a lot of people are saying, well, wait, we heard about that 2 years ago. Let's look at that again. Oh, wait, it was all correct. It's all consistent there. So it seems to me that there's been a huge public shift against this kind of small blocker vision of Bitcoin as a result of these leaks, and the BTC community have been absolute chaos, as a small minority have been trying to excuse it, push it away, find, there's no actual proof that Adam did anything wrong or, whatever. But it seems like the majority are kind of like, oh, geez, we did not see this coming. And actually, we did have a lot more people involved. Maybe the big blockers had more of a point than we, once imagined or that we ever gave them credit for. That's what I'm seeing. What do you think, Jonathan?
I think there's a lot of allegations or accusations going in a lot of different directions. And I weren't there, so I can't really say what is the truth to all of this. I'm not in any way condoning or saying it's a good thing for people to do bad stuff. I'm just saying that I'm not an oracle. I don't have the truth here.
But in terms of the public perception, if you had to take a stab at it,
public perception has indeed changed. There is a large change to the narrative shift. A lot of people are questioning where they got the information and how reliable that information is. Even if you take, for example, like all these stories about Adam Back, and then you say, yeah, maybe there's nothing here, right? Then I can still point and say that he chose explicitly not to share. And when asked, he chose to remain silent. And when asked again, he chose to only reveal parts of whatever he knew. And at every step, minimum information is being provided. And that is the behavior of someone who doesn't want to share the information. I don't know if not wanting to share information is a bad thing, but if you're doing bad stuff, then,
obviously you don't want to share it. Yes.
Yeah. Again,
yes.
Not trying to accuse anyone, not trying to say that I know better or know what's actually went down in any place at all. For all I care, it can just have been a business arrangement for sending some money back and forth in order to build something that they wanted to build, and there could be no harm or bad stuff involved at all. Or it could be massively bad, and I just have no idea of knowing. And again, I just want to build peer-to-peer money for the world and have nothing to do with all of these things.
Indeed. Right. So as a result of that, we've had some kind of, fallout. My community comment of the week is from Jameson Lopp, who said, quote, "Schisms are natural in any voluntary, consensus-driven collective. When voice fails, the only option is exit. The longevity of bad blood, 8 years and going, between Bitcoin schisms leads me to believe it's best to make clean cuts. Stop interacting with those who choose exit," end quote, which to me is basically like the Epstein Files have kind of put it over the line, and there's just not really a lot of defending the small blocker position anymore, because this is the first time in 8 years that you have people like Jameson, who previously has actually gone out of his way to annually mock the BCH community, is now suddenly like, we can't even talk to these guys. They're on their own fork. Let's leave them to it, etc. If that was his attitude, why wasn't that his attitude 8 years ago? It's only his attitude now that he's just in such an untenable position, both on the technicals of the protocol, on the surrounding information, on the conspiracy hijacking stuff. Like, there's no element of, on the price even, there's no element that he can point to and laugh. And so he's just rage quit. Like, and there's been certainly some people who've been in that thing. It's anecdotal, of course, but he blocked me, which he had not done before. Peter Todd also has blocked me, which he had not done before when he was wanting to argue with me or even have some, friendly banter or whatever. That's it. Like, they're done. They're just out of there. There's a section of the BTC community that just can't take the heat after all this Epstein stuff, and that's it. It's game over for them. I don't know if you have any. Have you guys been seeing that? Have you been getting blocked or shut off?
No, I haven't get blocked, but I also haven't engaged a lot. So it's no, I haven't engaged, but I haven't engaged in a way that is detrimental.
Provocative.
I've been kind of balanced in all of my engagement as far as I know. No, so I'll just go back and say that, like, back in 2017 when we did the split, the big blocker version had an idea for how it was going to go down from a technical basis, and people said that we were dumb and didn't know what to do. And then we actually went ahead and did it, and we have scaled now, and we know that it works. And we are not the only ones. BCH is not yes, we have scaled and we have larger blocks and we have better infrastructure to handle those larger blocks. But if you look around at other chains that have popped up since, they have also scaled. And just like the block time for new chains tend to be closer to a minute or less, because that's kind of the sensible number in the end. If you look at the scalability perspective, everyone have kind of consolidated and these things scales. We can build things at scale now. And so the technical argument not to go with the big blocker side back in 2017 was just misguided. And they can't fault that anymore. And the argument that we should do soft forks instead of hard forks because hard forks are bad is also nonsensical. And we have done so many hard forks that have turned out super great since then. And we have a much cleaner protocol. We have much better fundamentals. We have a lot less technical debt. We have just been taking good technical decisions year after year after year after year since 2017. And right now, as you said, it's really, really hard to fault BCH for something, because we don't really have any problem to fault us with anymore. And culturally, we've also changed. And all of these things have turned for the better. And so, if I were on the small blocker side and I was accustomed and used to being able to say that these guys are wrong and people normally agreeing with me, and then enter a climate in where that is no longer true because they actually proved that they weren't wrong, then it's not going to be fun to talk, is it? Right? Whatever you say, you're going to be wrong. Better take a step back and look at the actual facts on the table.
Yes, indeed. So we've got, that's only some people. I feel like some people are just disconnecting. They can't handle it. Maybe they got to process on their own time. Maybe they're going to cope, by shutting. The debate is over as they switch off the comments in their comments section. You can't ban the debate. You can only ban yourself from it. So the conversation is going to flow around those people.
Yes.
That's as simple as
so that has happened to me. I've seen a lot of people where I can't respond to them. Not because I responded to them earlier and they didn't like me, but because they just disable comments altogether. And as you said, back in 2015, 2017, those years, I tried to argue for my case, and I got banned from the forums where I argued it. And the discussion didn't end. It just moved on to somewhere else, and they were no longer part of it. And we'll move on without them. We don't need them. It's just we're going to build the tools and services. We're going to build money that works. We're going to separate money and state. I'm just going to move on. That's it.
Yes, so that's not everyone. Some people have been having some insight that maybe they need to reevaluate where they were at. We've got a clip here from Bitcoin Mechanic on Guy Swan's roundtable talking about the split and the way that Tether and Bitfinex influence things. Very well. Let's hear what he has to say, and then I'll comment afterwards.
Totally committed to a dead chain.
One point of view I have that isn't very popular is I think exchanges play a large role in these kinds of things.
They all do. They do. They necessarily do. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think you have any ability to stop exchanges from like listing Bitcoin 10 Bitcoin as like a separate coin. Like that's just going to happen.
Agreed.
Have you guys thought about like how that's going to play out?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really shy away from it. The reason SegWit 2 2x lost and we won was because Bitfinex called our coin Bitcoin and they called Segwit 2x not Bitcoin. I mean, that was why that happened. Bitfinex, that is why the Tether FUD was always so violent, because it came from the big blockers and they never targeted the other, what do you call them, stable coins the same way. It was because Tether basically went on our side in spite of all the other big exchanges. So that was a little different because it was a futures market as opposed to.
So there you have it. I mean, I think it's fascinating that he says this is Tether FUD. Literally the sentence before he was saying actually it was true. They did. Bitfinex and Tether swung it in our side and they won. And then right after he calls it FUD. FUD is supposed to be fear, uncertainty, and doubt about fake stuff. It's supposed to be misinformation. But it was true. He literally says that it's true and then says that it was FUD. So
actually, FUD is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's nothing untrue in there. You can have FUD that is true. That's perfectly wrong.
I guess so, technically. But people usually use it to mean misinformation, like propaganda, even if it is true. You're trying to create an emotional reaction. It's not just a fact. Like at the time, what he calls FUD was people accurately pointing out what was happening.
I'll argue that that guy was only partially right. The market did decide the actual outcome. That's what happened, right? People bought and sold, prices moved, and that was it. Now, why they acted the way they did is because they had information, and that information is meaningful, right? Information and relationships between people made them take the actions they do, because people don't act in isolation. And so I say he's half right, because Tether doing those decisions and getting exchanges to list Bitcoin as BTC and list BCH as not BTC did impact that. It gave information to people to behave in specific ways and had a humongous impact. But ultimately, it was still like people changing money that decided the actual outcome.
Yes. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know about that. Of course, like that's the whole point. If Tether printed all this fake money and used that to manipulate the market, well, once you get the snowball rolling, it's obviously going to. Okay, I agree that yes, the market in the end proved it was wrong, but clearly there was manipulation, and now they're even admitting that there was manipulation. Like it's ridiculous.
Well, there's manipulation on both sides, right? You can't say that the people on the big blocker side never talk to an exchange and try to, have the exchange see our viewpoints.
Yes, but nobody in the big blocker side is running a stable coin where they're producing billions of fake coins to manipulate the market. Like, there's a big difference between advocacy and actually going out of your way to change, change the markets. I just think, I think that's a bit of a cope that they're still saying, oh well, that was fake. We've got one other clip which I'm hoping I've got the timestamp right, but from Bitcoin Mechanic, he's admirably started to dispel some of the hoaxes that the BTC guys have been in. He made a really good video, which I recommend everyone go and listen to, called Dirty Laundry, Delusion, and Humility. It's an hour and 20 minutes long, but the last 20 minutes is especially good, so we can't put all of it, but he has several admissions in there that he was not thinking through the big blocker perspective well enough. And I'm hoping, let's just have a listen to what he had to say here.
I'm not going to expect you to ever take me seriously again if I don't come clean about it. But anyway, back to what I've learned from the last few wars. The Segwit conflict, I was massively confident in Segwit's ability and the wrongness of the other side. And I went in with much wider-eyed enthusiasm and much more, naivety. And turns out Segwit has some ugly aspects to it I don't like. It made blocks bigger, which I didn't even realize until halfway through the fight. I never realized there was a compromised block size increase. I never knew that. The witness discount I really dislike. And there were other lessons about it too. And I guess the other thing I would take is that I let myself believe that we just had everything correct on our side, and we were not coercing anyone into accepting a chain they didn't want. I let myself believe these things because they're comfortable, but they're not true. And this was the point I tried to convey in El Salvador, that when people are saying, look, Bitcoin 10 doesn't have consensus, and rather than say it does, I'm just going to say that is consensus is a nice to have. I know we don't have it for Bitcoin 10, but I know we didn't have it for SegWit either. And we just did it anyway. And admitting that we just grabbed it and made Bitcoin what it is we want and pretended it wasn't a change because it wasn't a hard fork, it's dishonest. And I've let myself sit with that narrative for too many years. Bitcoin is what the Bitcoiners say it is. And there is an element of coercion in that. And I've made my peace with that. I'm no longer going to pretend that doesn't exist. It's a thing that most Bitcoiners are not masochistic enough to delve into and reconcile in their own head. To them, Bitcoin is permissionless freedom, everything. Stop trying to control people, blah, blah, blah. And they're just wrong. It is the most rigid, punishing system imaginable that refuses to allow people to operate outside of the boundaries it imposes. And those boundaries get moved by Bitcoiners themselves, sometimes in a way that others don't like. And it's happened in the past, and that's what Bitcoin 10 attempts to do.
All right. He's got, he goes on, in that vein for quite a while. But firstly, I have to give him a huge shout out for being willing to say this stuff publicly. There's a lot more in this sort of similar vein that, the whole SegWit 2x, we had consensus, Big Blocks was against the consensus, which was clearly never true because consensus means everyone agrees. That's literally what it means. And then the fact that there was a split proves that there was not consensus. But they've had this narrative, this cope for such a long time that the big blocker objections were illegitimate or, was just a few fringe idiots or whatever. And now finally we're getting to the truth. And thank goodness, shout out to Mechanic for saying it, that was all completely fake. Everyone can agree now that Bitcoiners did not agree. And so there's two options and everyone has the coin they want. But that just takes all the air out of the fake superiority of we had consensus and you guys didn't. We did it with a soft fork and therefore it was fine. That's over. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah. To me, the bigger problem was kind of the statement that I let myself believe, because if you're looking at it from a technical perspective, and he says that I didn't understand that the blocks were going to get bigger, that was a pretty obvious part of the technical design, and it was brought up, and people were made aware of it by the big blockers, or at least those who listened to big blockers were made aware of it, and the idea that I think I'm on the right side and we have consensus or we have we are correct. Well, I've been trying to say quite a several times this specific podcast episode as well. There is no such thing as one side being entirely correct. The world is gray. It's full of trade-offs. You make choices, and so if you go around and you enforce things on others, then that's your own conscience that you gotta play with and live with afterwards. It kind of upsets me a bit to hear that the quote unquote winning side won despite this kind of people on it.
Well, anyway, I'm just glad to see that, at least on his part. And again, I just want to give him a huge shout out. It's a really good video. You should go listen to the whole thing. But, taking that kind of public L and so forth, it's not an easy thing to do. And despite that being my advice to him previously on the show, I'm sure it's not easy for him to actually go through with it. And it, like you're saying, with as comparison to Adam Back or anybody else, it shows a great deal of integrity and honesty that he will actually, change his mind and make those kind of admissions, even when he knows that it involves going back on some of the stuff he'd previously done, the people he dismissed, people he'd insulted, all this kind of stuff. So,
absolutely.
And that represents a segment of people, right? It's not just him going through that process, but he's the one with the podium standing up on it, making those statements.
Yes, I think more importantly, rather than the taking a loss and admitting that you were wrong, the fact that he is looking for truth is the more important part. Now, I'm actually not sure he's found truth yet. I think he's guiding himself into another corner somewhere based on that logic and discussion he was showing off. But yeah, keep looking for truth. I'm sure you'll find it if you spend more time actually taking in different viewpoints from different angles.
Indeed. Okay, and we've got one more clip. This one's well, I mean, it's just a simple quote, but let's have a listen to John Carvalho here on his latest realizations about Bitcoin.
My point is, there should also be another paper that just defines, I think you could actually define an actual size of a blockchain in the abstract. In other words, not the block size, not specifically how many people are currently using it or what the current hash power is, but what the actual limit of capacity is for the blockchain. And you could define this as something like, X users per minute or X users per day or this kind of thing. You often will hear this like that Bitcoin has really low transaction capacity, like something, I forget what it is, 4 transactions per second, or it's something that like shitcoins like the claim is really low because they can do a lot more transactions. And that instinct is actually pretty good on their part because it is a differentiator. Like I actually am now coming to believe that Bitcoin has a maximum size for how many people can use it at once. And that size doesn't change unless you change the kind of magic numbers, like the block size or the throughput of networks, this kind of thing. You have to actually make real advancements in efficiency on networks to change it. And so, yeah, I think that something like for example, with layers, like I'm researching, I think you could maybe get away with 1 million people on layers without things breaking. But once you start getting into like 3 to 5 million, I actually think there's no way. I think that just all the layers start becoming failures and start becoming unreliable, and people start getting mad, and the whole reputation of layers falls apart. So we're going to continue to have layers for as long as less than 1 million people love them. But as soon as we go above that, we're going to start seeing things.
So there you have it. John Carvalho, famously of the Bcash GIF and trolling Roger Ver about how Big Blocks is so stupid. Even in this one clip, he can't keep his story together because he starts out by saying not the block size limit, and then 1 minute later he's saying, well, actually, you need to change the block size limit to increase the amount of traction, the amount of capacity on Bitcoin, which everybody has known since the beginning, except for him and everyone in the small block information bubble. And it's kind of crazy to see in 2026 finally coming to that realization, but better late than never. That's kind of how I feel about it.
He is coming at it from the right angle, at least. Like he's starting from what can we actually support and working his way back to how should the system be done so that it doesn't break, right? And he's talking about what's the maximum block size. Now, of course, he's messing the concept and he's starting to talk about users rather than actual transactions, where the system doesn't really have users, it has transactions. And he also ignores all prior work, like he ignores the entire gigabit, the gigablock initiative. I can't remember what the name was. Bitcoin Unlimited did a bunch of research.
All the research.
Yeah, we had tons of good research back in 2015 to 2017 that came at it from that specific angle. Like, what can we actually support technically to answer the kind of questions like how big should the block be today? And the answer back then was, yeah, we can probably go somewhere around 500 megabytes per block. It probably works out. We have to work a little bit to make it stable and good there, but around there. And of course, today we're nowhere there anymore. We're far, far ahead of it. And he also talks about the entire blockchain as having a fixed size. But that's a nonsensical argument because the entire blockchain over an infinite amount of time is infinite in size and therefore cannot exist. So you, of course, have to ask yourself, what is the actual end game? The actual end game is that you're going to have something like the initial block time, download time has to work, but as soon as you apply, I can't remember the name for them right now.
UTXO commitments.
Yeah, the UTXO commitments. Then suddenly you can define a window, right? The time from the UTXO commitment to the next UTXO commitment. That's your time frame. Now you have an actual size and a scaling window that moves across time. with that size, you can put the argument he makes here into place and ask what is the largest possible size. And of course, what you're going to land on again is like everything else is that big blockers had the technical parts right, and they already knew this. They already did all the groundwork and all the research, and they already fixed and actually built the thing. So welcome to reality, John.
yes, that kind of what it comes down to. Welcome back to reality. So I just give this as a, kind of an example of this is the sort of three different angles on the problem. Jameson Lopp, let me just disengage with this and not engage at all. Mechanics, at least try and figure it out. Okay, the big blockers had some ideas. I need to sort of go back and look at that, maybe give it a fresh take. And John Carvalho kind of independently doing the research, but of course the research is already there and he can already look at it. But he maybe needs to make a public show of, oh, I did my own research and came to these conclusions, rather than just saying, shit, I should have read this 10 years ago when people were trying to show it to me. And there's an element of saving face here, so I understand that.
Yeah, but it's also a matter of bag holding, I think. Like if you go back in time and then you have two opposing views and he believes one of them going to fail and they try to tell him that the world looks this specific way, what you're feeling is that if they are right and I'm wrong, I'm losing all my money, right? Yes. I'm losing all my purchasing power, all my assets. And you don't want that to be true. So you enter like shell and start defending yourself. Now, I'm not saying that people who took those decisions are bad in any way. Like they acted on the information they have and they did what they could. And I really love to hear all these people coming to, from my perspective, of course, to their senses. And if they come at from their own research, then it just makes it so much more valuable, so much more meaningful for them. So happy for them to go whatever they want. I will restate though that this world has 8 billion plus something people on it, and the people who were against big blocks in the big block small block war, the hash war of 2017, they are such a small minority of the users that it doesn't matter. We should build our services for the other 8 billion people and make sure that we solve real problems in their lives and ship real products that they will want to use and create the demand for ourselves. And when we have done that, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, that's true. Technically, they are a very small amount of people, but at the same time, they're also A, some of the people most interested in Bitcoin, and B, some of the people most influential to how other people think about Bitcoin. So for those reasons, a few key changes of that. And also C, they're networked. They all know each other as the people who care about it and are interested in Bitcoin. So that's why I do these segments on the show, to show the changing trends, to show how people are changing their mind, because it's critical for everyone to see that, like what Paul Stewart said, everyone needs to see that everyone else is going to the cooler party or is like figuring it out. And that's kind of what's happening here, right? Okay, message to the community, just on that topic or on any other topic, actually, on BLISS, on Quantum, on the Epstein Files, on, I don't know, whatever else is going on in your life. What does the BCH community need to hear?
I think I'm going to go with, we need to make user interfaces for our applications and our tools that are human. And what that means is somewhat vague. But if you ever show a technical identifier in any shape or form without the user asking for it, you're probably doing it wrong from my perspective. So that's what I think. Like we should level up that game.
Right, we need to level up that.
That's needed for the other 8 billion.
Yes. Yeah, I think it is absolutely critical. And certainly, hopefully, we can get some more sort of design and UI type of people starting to get interested in BCH. Often the way engineering works is that things start very, very technical, and then slowly they hit kind of a tipping point where a lot of the technical bits are sorted, and it just needs to be wrapped up right. But people designers and so aren't interested in all the arcane debating that goes on before that point. So yeah, true. I think we are getting to the point that that's becoming very relevant. Okay, shout out to our FundMe contributors. Majamali, this is a marathon. Molecular, the show we love. Cash Dragon, Bastion.com, fair and decentralized Twitter, at Cash Stamps BCH for the win, DGNN FurQ, Sick Rap Anthem, #1 token coming at you, P2P Cash, Smash the Stake, greater than 40% APY, https://nwb.cash, John All, best podcast ever, Brian Kanachi, and Anonymous, our patrons, Ricky, Kyle, and HP, and our sponsors. Check out General Protocols at bchbull.com. Start guide, FAQ, and links are at bitcoincashpodcast.com. If you're new, listen to episode 85. Try Celine Wallet at celine.cash and go to bliss.cash and buy yourself a Layla ticket to come to Bliss. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Final shout outs for the show. Jonathan, who do you want to give a mention to?
No, I'm done. Enough shout outs.
No
That's
one.
perfectly fine. We'll just move
Okay.
forward.
Jet, any final shout outs?
This one's going to be a weird one coming from me, I think, but this one's for the Canadians specifically. If you're wondering how to handle, cryptocurrency in a way that doesn't absolutely destroy your life with paperwork and taxes, and is like compliant and blah, blah, blah. Well, it's simple. I'm so surprised. Like, I have been using their software to do my taxes for the past couple of years. And I go to check it out this year and I see that they offer Bitcoin Cash specifically. And like, it, of course, is self-custodial, but there's no issues with withdrawals from my experience so far. I will keep everyone updated if I ever have a problem with them. And yeah, I'm glad to finally be participating in the bank runs.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Good to hear. Good to hear they got BCH integration. And my shout out goes to Big V, who was in the comments before saying that he was really excited to see everyone at Bliss. I'm looking forward to having another beer with you there, mate. That's going to be fantastic. So that'll do it for this week. Thank you all for listening. Till next time.
Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all.
Kryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hodl-nana, dump it all. Chain and blinking, step into the trade. There's more to lose than can never be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low, what a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. And some of us soar to the stars, but the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. Hodl-nana, dump it all. of exit. Liquidity.
Tu nas the living with I'm a